Hello, I'm Elizabeth Fanboy, and this is my first video of the decade. Hooray. This video is a little bit late, but that's nothing new. I was originally planning for my first review of this year to be Cat in Paris, but that video is being delayed for a couple of reasons. Mainly because alongside my general reviews, I also wanted to start reviewing the latest animated movies closer to when they come out, starting with the most recent Pixar powerhouse, namely Onward. Now, I'm somewhat of a D&D enthusiast myself, and a big fan of fantasy stories in general. I'm also of the opinion that Pixar hasn't made an actual bad movie apart from two very specific shitty outliers. Maybe three. Shout out to all my fellow Brave fans. Point is, I was very excited for this movie. But is it the usual Pixar standard?
We're just gonna have to wait and see.
So let's get into it. To summarise the basic plot, and heads up as there will be spoilers, two brothers, Ian and Barley, are the denizens of what used to be a typical fantasy world, but with the advent of technology has become more similar to our world. However, magic still exists in historically accurate D&D-like tabletop games and Yu-Gi-Oh-like card games, which Barley is a huge fan of. Ian's 16th birthday rolls around, and it's revealed that their dad was a wizard, and left them a wizard staff for when they both turned 16, but Ian is the only one who can do magic. They discover a spell that can bring their father back from the dead for 24 hours, but it only half works, so they must go on a quest to find a second Phoenix gem that will allow them to complete the spell and see their father one last time. So, much like Monsters Inc., the world starts off very normal and similar to our world in order to establish that magic only exists in small doses and reinforce how big of a deal their dad being a wizard is. They do a good job of having enough fantasy to start with as to not make it uninteresting, but also not enough that they play all their magic cards, pun intended, too early. A very difficult balance to get right, but they pull it off well. I wasn't thinking, man, get to the spells already at any point during the opening act. As the story progresses and the brothers get further and further into their journey, the magic becomes more frequent and the set pieces become a lot more fantasy-like. However, it is very leisurely in that transition. It's more of a constant gradient of building intrigue as the journey moves forward, rather than lots of exciting, action-oriented scenes and emotional moments packed tightly together. As a result, it can lead to the film having a more average quality to start off with, that slowly eases into a more fascinating story with more heart, especially surrounding its main characters, but I'll get to that later. I can see some people getting turned off by that if they're not used to or are not fans of that sort of sliding scale story structure. As for the magic itself, it's handled extremely well. The various spells aren't really anything new, with bolts of lightning, changing the size of objects, levitating objects, and other familiar spells. However, they still managed to keep it interesting by having the magic be visually distinct and interesting to look at, and by having the system of magic be fairly unique. By the way the spells are cast, requiring different points of focus to work, such as concentration, confident conviction, self-trust. It's not all chalked up to believing hard enough like so many other magic systems. There's an actual internal logic that's explained without being too overly complicated for viewers to follow. I also like that certain aspects of the magic that seem like throwaway lines or general vague fantasy terms actually come back to the story in unexpected ways. I especially love the climax action scene. I won't give too much away about it, but it is just spectacular to look at. Absolutely visually stunning. Speaking of visually stunning, the backgrounds are gorgeous. The landscapes are beautiful to look at with a good mix of fantasy and earthly designs to them. I especially love the sky in this movie. The sky in this movie at all times looks absolutely beautiful, with a perfect combination of different colours and hues. It's fantastic. I especially love the scene near the end involving a sunset that is just breathtaking, and if you've seen the movie, I'm assuming you know which one I mean. The character designs are decent as well. I was worried there would be a good dinosaur situation with the realistic backgrounds and cartoony character designs not gelling at all, but luckily that's not the case. They hit a much more satisfying balance there, and the designs fit really well in their environment. I will say, however, that aside from the pixies, the manticore, and obviously the elf family, the designs, while well designed, are quite generic and just kind of forgettable. This may seem like a weird comparison to keep drawing, but bear with me. In Monsters Inc., another movie taking place in a very human-like world but with non-human creatures, most of the monsters have distinct and memorable designs, and they stick with you. Point is, I would have personally liked to see a more diverse range of fantasy creatures included, although there is one creature that's based on a specific D&D monster and gets referenced in a joke earlier in the movie that I thought was just fucking great. I loved that. Of course, the emotional core of the story is where it really shines, and that would be the Pixar speciality of the family-oriented story, in this case the connection between the brothers Ian and Barley, despite their dichotomy of personalities, with Barley as the nerdy, reckless and outgoing oddball who wants to help his brother have a good time by taking him on the type of thrilling quest that he himself enjoys, and Ian is the more grounded, socially awkward overthinker who wants to try and fit in but ends up getting embarrassed by his brother that eventually learns to trust his judgment. Star-Lord and Spider-Man do a great job of selling the fact that they are actually siblings. They have a really genuine and likable bond. They fight and get in petty arguments and get mad at each other, of course, just like real siblings do, but they never lose sight of their sibling love for each other. They both demonstrate at various points throughout the film that they will sacrifice anything for each other's happiness, because deep down they care about each other more than themselves, which leads to some of the film's most sweet and heartwarming moments. Especially the ending, which I won't give away here, but it's a brilliant twist that reveals a whole other layer to Ian and Barley's relationship, that watching it again is actually in plain sight and makes you look at certain moments from a completely different perspective that makes them even more heartfelt. I think this relationship works especially well because Barley never once shows a hint of envy or bitterness towards Ian for being the one with the magical gift. He instead really supports him and is excited to see and help his brother get better at it. That one detail that I think most other people telling this type of story would go the other way is a lot of why these characters are so likeable and work well off each other. Taking a look at some of the other characters, the dad legs, and I feel confident saying this, have the most personality of any sentient pair of legs put to screen. In all seriousness, the dad legs surprisingly managed to express a wide range of feelings and character, showing you more about the dad and what he was like, particularly his relationship with the boys, without actually having him in the scene. There's particularly the way he first realizes who he's with and semi-communicates with Barley, that first explains the memory, that's not only really clever, but also really sweet. Aside from that and some of the other sweet moments with the boys, he's basically unimportant to the story. You could tell the story without him until the very end that he's needed for, and the story would largely stay the same. But in the end, I'm glad they included him for those really sweet moments. The B-plot follows the mother of Ian and Barley alongside a slightly off-the-rails manticore named Wild the Manticore, as they try and find Ian and Barley and stop them activating a dangerous curse. I guess it's kind of a reversal of the Finding Nemo story in that way, with the kid's journey being the A-plot and the parents' journey being secondary rather than the other way around. Both the mom and the Manticore are decent characters, with the mom showing that she will go to any lengths to save the boys despite being very accustomed to a run-of-the-mill normal life, and the Manticore encouraging her while also rediscovering her own roots as a fearsome warrior. I have to give it props that this film not only has a mother who's alive, but also plays a larger role in the story. That's pretty rare in terms of animated movies, especially Disney. There's also a police stepfather who's not an evil step-parent, so that's a plus, but it's also not super interesting either, and I could take it or leave it with his character. The message of this film is one that I've seen before in a couple of places, but one that I really like, which is that it's okay to look into the past as long as we focus on what we have in the present and learn from it to keep moving forward, or onward, towards a better future. In the case of this movie, it's the brothers looking back into the past to connect with their father, only to come to a better understanding of each other, which strengthens their connection in the present, ultimately leading to them bringing magic back into the world together, without completely eradicating the modern technology that already exists. Even though it's a message that's been done before, it does it in a very unique and personal way that ties into Ian and Barley's character arc spectacularly, and also thankfully comes across as a lot less boomerish than I first expected. Moving on to my final thoughts, I really enjoyed this movie. The world was well developed and became exciting as the story goes on, the characters are expertly written, the dialogue is clever and believable, as are the character connections, the magic was a joy to watch, especially in the climax, and of course it was a tearjerker like 90% of Pixar movies. Is it one of Pixar's best, though? Yeah, no, maybe. Almost. Let's go with almost. It's between the low end of their best and the high end of their middle, I'd say. It's a really well-rounded, spectacular movie for sure, and I definitely want to see it more than the twice I watched it for this review, but the middling tone for a lot of it, as well as the jokes not really being all that memorable, aside from some standout moments, coupled with the fantasy aspect outside of the magic not being explored all that deeply, prevents it from really being one of the best for me. But I think that's a testament to how good Pixar films are, for the most part, that it is still a fantastic fantasy film and a brilliant exploration of family. I give it an 8.5 out of 10, as it's just shy of the Golden Luxo standard, but still highly worth watching. And it seems like a resurgence for original Pixar films, which I for one am very excited for. Let me know in the comments what film, TV show, or just animated thing you want me to review next, good or bad. Comment and like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and if you... well, excuse me, I'm going to start a new D&D campaign. Now, should I start the party off at the base of a dragon-guarded volcano castle, or at the start of a cursed forest of certain death?
I saw a lovely dark elf with hair as sleek as ebony. Her armor seemed to betray the forces of our gravity. Told her that I liked her mount, but mounting me would be a treat. I stamped and swore the sword she wore was not intended for deceit. Guild ho, hoard ho to victory. No sum of gold can buy a better life, all else is misery. Guild ho, hoard ho to victory. So grab a beer and flex your pecs, it's time for us to march. I tripped upon a curvy gnome whose cheek was all bespeckly. The eye to me I could foresee a problem all quite vividly. She stood in shock as I explained positions that would work for